Good morning, friends. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. What is that? Well, I'm PB. I'm Pastor Brian. Good morning, friends. Oops, sorry, I got to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. What is that? Well, I'm PB. There we go. Doing things a little different today, and of course there was an issue. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to start over here, and hopefully, nope. All right. Hasn't given a notification yet that I'm live, so hopefully it will, or hopefully you'll just be able to find out. But I'm going to start again. Hi, welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. I'm Brian, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church in Waynesboro. Great to be able to gather together in this way to look at the Bible, to read the Bible, and to hopefully help you and help me understand things a little bit better and perhaps a little differently, perhaps in a different way. We've been doing this for quite a while now, well over a year, closing in on 2 years. And so I don't know what total episode number, but it's episode 8 on our journey through 2 Samuel, or as I've been saying, the second half of the book of Samuel, because there truly is just one Samuel. The whole thing was one book, and it got split at some point over time, just to try to make it smaller because it was too big. Got a notification. Is that yes? Woo! All right, now it does have notifications. We are here. We are together. Hopefully, it's let you know that too. I'm just kind of delaying though as more people join together with us this morning. I can see we've got some. Go ahead and let me know that you're watching. Let me know you're watching. Say hello, say good morning, say all that kind of wonderful stuff. Also, feel free to leave comments or questions in the comment section of the stream. I do go back in, so even if you're not watching this at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, if you're watching it some other time, I do go in and see your comments and questions and stuff. And it is, for me, 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. I was able to be here live today. One of the advantages of running a meeting is you get to control the time, how long it runs. Sometimes anyway. And I was able to do that this morning. I was intentional so that I can get off, and I didn't have to pre-record for today, which is awesome. Hello, Marcia, walking and listening. I'm going to take it from your little emojis there. It's like a little rebus or something. Hieroglyphs of what you're doing. But hi, good to have you, excuse me, joining us this morning. And I see we have more than that there, joining, not just watching, not just listening, but joining, which is wonderful. And since we are a small group, meaning we do share life together, go ahead and go ahead and share your joys, your concerns, what's on your hearts this morning, so we can keep each other in prayer, surrounded in prayer, lifted up in prayer. Not only today, but keep each other in prayer throughout the day. And then when we get more tomorrow, we'll add those kind of things. Good morning, John and Cindy. Good to have the both of you joining us this morning as well. This is awesome. Great. And today is Wednesday, so we've got one more day. We're going to do chapter 8 today of 2 Samuel, and then tomorrow will be episode 9. So tomorrow we'll be doing chapter 9. Then we take that break, of course, for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday is worship at 8:15 and 10:45 in person at 8:15 and 10:45, live streamed at 10:45. So you can join us either way, join us in person or join us live streamed. And of course, one of the advantages with the live stream is if 10:45 doesn't work for you, you can join worship. You can worship with us at some other time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock the next morning, whatever seems to work best for you. Now, if you do join us online, or if you join us in person, if you join us in person, we have pew pads to keep attendance and share prayer requests with me and with the prayer team. Or But we also have a digital form called a connection card. And so the link will be printed in the, excuse me, will be listed in the bulletin. In the bulletin each week, just as a reminder. So if you're in person, you can use either. You can use the attendance pad, or you can use the connection card. And if you're joining online, obviously you can only use the connection card. But even if you're joining at a time other than 10:45, whenever you're joining, please fill in the connection card. Let us know that you worshiped with us. And there's a way to say what day the worship experience, what date of worship experience you were joining. So if it was this past Sunday, but you're worshiping today, just fill in the connection card and say it was July 24th's worship. It's a pretty easy calendar to use to identify the date too. You can just click on the calendar and it brings up a little thing, and you click on Sunday. It works. Anyway. Oh, I'm falling behind here. Good morning, Don. Glad you're able to join us, and good morning to you, Cheryl. You got notified again. Yay! Took a little bit. It took a couple minutes before I got a notification. So I think there's still some sort of a glitch in their system. But it looks to be a nice day out there today. I'm seeing some sunshine this morning. Yesterday wasn't quite as sunny. It was mostly gray and cloudy. Yesterday. Didn't get as much rain as I had hoped for. I understand we still have the possibility of some showers at some point today. They're almost guaranteed to happen because because I'm going to take a few hours off and go golfing. So it's almost guaranteed that it's going to rain. That's how that works. Probably at the farthest point from the clubhouse and all that. Anyway, you're not here to talk about that. You're here to read the Bible and to learn more about that. So I left some of my stuff, and I'm working from the home office today. And of course, I left one of my books at the church office. So I'm using my phone. So I might be looking at a little different angle than usual. Anyway, but we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 8. Now, so yesterday, 2 Samuel 7, we have the establishment of the proclamation, I should say, perhaps, of the Davidic covenant. And that's where God promises to David, I will establish you as king and your house. I will make of you a house, a dynasty. So that's the Davidic covenant, that there will always be a descendant of David on the throne of Israel. Is basically how that worked, which of course has been reinterpreted over the years to be a messianic prophecy, although it initially wasn't. It was initially just to shall we say, give political credence to David's line. And to establish his family as the rightful kings of Israel. So what happens next? Let's look. And we shouldn't necessarily think that things take place exactly in this order. Remember, we refer to this as a history book. It comes from the history books, and it's the Deuteronomistic history. So it's not exactly, don't think things took place exactly as they are related and exactly in the same order as which they are related. Time seems to be a very fluctuating thing in here. Might be the earliest first messianic prophecy. Well, Bob, you're getting into truly the messianic prophecies. Don't really come in until the time of the exile. I know I said that much of this does come from the exile, and that's true, but it comes from the messianic prophecies. Really come from a particular, we might say, branch or school, and to offer hope. offer hope to people. So we can see some of it in some of those writings. But a lot of it, to be truthful, comes in the what we might call to the intertestamental period. So they're not so much in Scripture as have been Scripture reinterpreted. For instance, this passage, and also the passage from Isaiah that we always look to, as far as behold, a virgin will conceive and bear a child, bear a son, and that's been reinterpreted as a messianic prophecy and speaking of Jesus. But when we look at the full context of the Isaiah prophecy of that passage from Isaiah, we see that that's not what he meant by it. He was speaking to a king at that time about a child being born at that time and about events taking place at that time. A siege that was a literal siege that was taking place. However, it was reinterpreted, like I said, especially in that intertestamental period. Not so much in the Apocrypha, we might say, because some of the Apocrypha is intertestamental, but other scriptures and just in the teachings of various branches of Judaism is where that would come from. Okay. Never to this moment, universal, surely, not sure what you meant by that, Bob, but that's okay. To this moment, universal, surely. Okay. So just keep those kind of things in mind. But like I said, it didn't necessarily take place exactly in this order and in the way these things are described. But that was the end of chapter 7. Now we're moving on to chapter 8. So that was just like a refresher, we might say. So chapter 8, let us begin. Verse 1. Sometime afterward, David attacked the Philistines and subdued them. David took Metheg-Ammah out of the hand of the Philistines. He also defeated the Moabites and, making them lie down on the ground, measured them off with a cord. He measured 2 lengths of cord for those who were to be put to death, and 1 length for those who were to be spared. And the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. Pause. I'm going to pause there. So this entire chapter really is about various wars that David fought, various battles. Let's call them battles, if nothing else, that David fought, and we can easily presume that David was actively involved in them. He wasn't like Saul, who seemed to kind of hang back and send his troops. Remember, that was part of the problem. It was one of the things people remembered about David. You led our troops out and back. So he seems to be doing the same thing, even though he is now the king. But we see him having great victories over the Philistines and conquering territory. So this entire chapter is about David's kingdom being fully established and the bounds of the territory. The kingdom of Israel becomes the largest it ever was during the time of David, okay, according to the scriptures. And so we're mentioning places that the Philistines had taken over, but they're actually in Israel territory, so now he's taken them back. He's also got this thing about them with the Moabites, which is terrible, isn't it? It's terrible when we read this. It's this. He's brutal. He executes 2/3 of the people. 2/3 of the people, and the 1/3 that he allows to live, he makes his slaves. He makes them his slaves, and they bring tribute, meaning they have to bring stuff to David, whatever, gold, precious stones, and jewels, and special linens, and purple cloths. Purple, and I think also red, but especially purple, were supposed to be the most expensive ones. It had to do with the dyes, I believe. So we see very brutal actions by David. His brutality is high, very brutal. So we're going to continue here, picking up from there. Verse 3. David also struck down King Hadadezer, son of Rehob of Zobah, as he went to restore his monument at the river Euphrates. David took from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers. David hamstrung all the chariot horses, but left enough for 100 chariots. Pause. More brutality. Of course, a chariot horse, a horse itself is a war animal. It's a war animal. That's all that you really used horses for at the time, to carry chariots. So it's a war animal. So David is hamstrung, meaning he cuts the hamstring, cuts the thing on the horses so that they can no longer run properly and carry the thing. It's horrible. It's very brutal and inhumane. But there's that military context. By doing that, the people won't be able to use those horses for their armies anymore. So it's kind of like taking away their tanks, destroying the tanks, so that they can't be used anymore against you. Picking up from there. Verse 5, when the Arameans of Damascus came to help King Hadadezer of Zobah, David killed 22,000 men of the Arameans. Then David put garrisons among the Arameans of Damascus, and the Arameans became servants to David and brought tribute. Pause. Meaning he established little military outposts in Damascus. Continuing. Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. David took the gold shields that were carried by the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem from Betah and from Berotai, towns of Hadadezer. King David took a great amount of bronze. When King Toi of Hamath heard that David had defeated the whole army of Hadadezer, Toi sent his son Joram to King David to greet him and to congratulate him because he had fought against Hadadezer and had defeated him. Now Hadadezer had often been at war with Toi. Joram brought with him articles of silver, gold, and bronze. These also King David dedicated to Yahweh, together with the silver and gold that he dedicated from all the nations he subdued. From Edom, Moab, the Ammonites, the Philistines, Amalek, and from the spoil of King Hadadezer, son of Rehob of Zobah. David won a name for himself. When he returned, he killed 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests. Sariah was secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were priests. End of chapter 8. I'm going to back up here because I want to point out a couple things to you. That ends the chapter, but we're going to talk about a couple things. In two different places, it says, in verse 6, it says, Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. And also there at the end of verse 14, it says, and Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. However, in verse 13, it's the very beginning, 13a, we might say, it says, David won a name for himself. So the author seems to be indicating, and maybe it's the beginnings of some issues. David so far has been very good at not using violence and power to aggrandize himself, to gain the kingdom or to keep the kingdom. But now there almost seems to be a difference. This phrase, this sentence, David won a name for himself. And all of these descriptions of these battles, David did this, David did that, David did the other thing, David measured out these people and killed them, David, it seems to be stressing human action. This chapter is grandly about human action. And there are those two expressions of God's action, or where God is in all of this. So there, it seems to be setting up a little bit of conflict. How much human action is needed, and how much human action is good? How much human action is David relying on, versus how much action and praise is being given to God, and to God's will and to God's action, and it seems to be very heavy on the human action side. Notice, and the authors have been very, very good about this in the past, expressing that David did virtually nothing without talking with God and saying, should I do this? Should I do that? The author of this section doesn't say that at all. David is doing all these things, apparently without direction from God. And yet it does gives praise to God, saying that God gave David victory. But it seems to be very heavy on the human action. I think that's what's taking place, and I think we're going to see that more and more as we go along too. In these next number of chapters, we're gonna see that. We're gonna see that. So it ends with a list of David's top officers, we might say, the upper echelon, the elite of his administration. It's his it's his war council, perhaps, or it's his cabinet. We might even say it's his cabinet, because there's different things. But we've got Joab, who we've heard of before, and he has now been firmly established as the head of the army. A couple new names, that Jehoshaphat was a new guy, and Zadok is a new guy. Ahimelech is not. Remember, Ahimelech was a descendant of Eli, and he's the only one that got away when Saul killed all those priests. And so they're the priests, and we've got a secretary, and we've got somebody over the Kerethites and the Pelethites, who I believe were I think those were over slaves, basically. So he's in charge of, he's the minister of defense, of the secretary of the interior. He's in charge of taking care of things and making things work right. And then David's sons were priests. So as David has served as priest, he's now using his sons to serve as priests. Very unusual, and something that, remember, Saul got in trouble when he tried to do the job of a prophet priest. But David not only has done it himself, and apparently without bad consequences, and he's now using his sons to do the same thing, virtually supplanting the role of Aaron's descendants in the process. Just want to back up one last time now to verse 15. We're going to end talking about verse 15. So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people. So that verse there, and this description of who his officers were, is setting things up as this is going to be a good kingdom. David is ruling over the entirety of Israel, and he is doing it with justice and equity to all his people, to all his people. Now, if we know anything about the future stories, this is sort of a warning to us, and we already know, perhaps, if you've read other parts of this, other parts of the story, it doesn't always stay that way. And even if someone is reading this for the first time, these words seem to be like that, basically foreshadowing, setting things up. It's a very dramatic statement. He administered justice and equity, especially because of those words, to all the people, to all his people. That has to make you wonder. I think that has to make you wonder. I think that author is expecting you to wonder, is it always going to be that way? When are things going to change? When are things going to change? Well, my friends, that's all we have for today. A little bit short of a session, perhaps only 25 minutes today, but that's all right. We'll be back at this again tomorrow for episode 9. Of course, you can always read ahead, but you've probably all got other reading homework to do, filling in on the Exodus, reading the parts of the book of Exodus that I'm not talking about on Sunday, because we are working our way through Exodus and the wilderness. And this week we're going to be talking about the art of memory. The art of memory. Huh? Yeah, well, it'll make sense, I think. And answering the question, this is a part of it, is God reliable? That's basically our theme for Sunday. The art of memory, is God reliable? It'll make sense by the time worship is over on Sunday. So please join us. Please join us for that. But also join us tomorrow as we look at chapter 9. Episode 9 of 2 Samuel. So, my friends, I do pray that this has been beneficial to you, that God has spoken to you in some way through what we've said and what we've read this morning. Oh, excuse me one sec. Yeah, through what we've said, through what we've read this morning, and as you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, both physical and spiritual, open to everything that God is saying, doing in your life and in the lives of those around you, because we do live and we do serve a loving, active God. When you see and hear those things, say, "Thank you, Papa," and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.